Okay, so today I'm going to delve a little bit deeper into oh, did that come out yet or not? They keep teasing it, the Eldraine. I'm one of those people who, like, not only did the new expansions and stuff not matter to me, it almost, at times you can't tell the difference or you certainly don't care. I just don't play enough, or I'm too late to the party, or I just take my time. And I like to play in, like, sort of historic formats and all this kind of stuff anyway. But we're kind of continuing today our dive into one of my least favorite colors, which is white, because I played green entirely too much, as I love it. Then I played red a little bit, which I'm not even a big fan of it, but there are certain things I like about it. I love some of the Sarkhan cards. Although I hate dragons and their seemingly suboptimal value. You get like a 5 mana 3/3 just on a basic level. I'm sure there are some better ones that I obviously don't have. I should try to craft some of those other cards that are like the heal buff shenanigans, which I might not even have enough wild cards to really do that. Or I noticed something today while putting my tags in into uh Twitch for this game, because I normally don't do the colors, but I thought, okay, let me try it, like do all the 5 colors. So I'm doing red, blue, green, but then there's an issue. It let me put in one of the other 2 colors but not the other one. Now I can imagine why, because of whatever you might extrapolate, but it's just a video game, and it's just one of the 5 colors in the game, like how Final Fantasy has white mages and black mages, or it might be a school of magic, so like I'm doing a hardcore run of Final Fantasy and I can only use white spells or black spells or whatever, so you're putting it like that. So I do think it's a little bit overbroad to simply say you can't put one of those in there, because it's just a game and it's just something that could be a mechanic in the game. And it's a little bit weird to have one but not the other, then, if you're going to extrapolate and maybe it's associated to real life. I was just surprised by that, because it doesn't seem to, not every, it has a very broader meaning that doesn't have to apply to just the one thing that I'm sure is being thought about. So I find that strange on 2 counts. One, again, it's just a mechanic in the game. It's just the color of one of the decks in the game. And on the flip side, it's also, you have one but not the other, so it's weird. Kill 25 creatures, so we're just trying to do daily quests and save up gold. So maybe next time, if we do the daily quests, we'll be able to do the draft. Black or red, so I'm not really going to use either of those. Blue or red, I'm also maybe not going to use those. I can find a way to use red, maybe otherwise. This is one of the pet peeves of mine in the game, like the fact that even creatures are called spells can be a little bit confusing. I haven't seen Davey in a while. He would always have these insane decks he would always just show off to me, although I guess by my standard is not very high, so it might not be that insane, really. The historic or wild and all these kind of unlimited formats I love so much, but people will still use meta stuff in them, right? They're not just kind of messing around. Well, I shouldn't say it so generalized, but in a basic sense, they'll still use like very strong things, which you think is only fair, but that actually looks really cool. What is that? Or is that just how the packs look? When the pack looks better than card backs and you just want that. But yeah, I definitely shouldn't waste my thing on any of this, although maybe the gems I will. I was even thinking, oh, I can do a draft with the gems if we can do like a cheaper one. Like 600 is equal to like almost 2,000 or whatever, or I forget what it would be. 1,500 is equal to like a 10k draft. So 600 must be like almost 3,000, something like that. If only you could combine them, you would already have enough to do it. This was also kind of a cool thing, but because you can also use anything that you want in this. Maybe I should try it once. But I was kind of too lazy to even... Oh, you know what I should do for this then? Since it's just whatever, you can use like cards that you don't even own. Let's do like a Planeswalker only deck, just for whatever color even, I don't care. So basically, but too many of them just mention it. Like it would have to be something where they summon a bunch of stuff. Like let's just try. We'll try one game with every white Planeswalker, and you might think, oh, that's going to be garbage. But the reason why it might work to some extent is because, and you could even do like multiple of them, but let's do one of them. Or no, let's actually do one of each that we can through every color and somehow make it work. Some of them are going to let you summon stuff from them, so that might make it actually viable, but it would still be hard to support. This is going to be hilarious. But the problem is they're also going to be very cost inefficient. That's a very cool picture. Reminds me of like that intro from Wind Waker, the way they draw it there. Just like, oh, I don't know how exactly you describe that art style. Almost like cave painting, like very old school scripture type stuff. This is kind of a weird way to play a game like this, though. You should probably all, or yeah, we could do blue in that. But a lot of the blue ones are kind of dumb. Like, you know what? That's enough. You already have 45. Oh, but that's only on account of the planes. I don't know. This is a little bit weird. You could do a few more of these, but then you're not going to have enough mana to actually do them. And the thing with Planeswalkers is they take up 2 of the mana of their color, typically at least, rather than 1 for a lot of the other cards. So, or you could just put multiple copies of some of them. Let's put multiple copies of the cheapest ones. But the way that you could actually make this sort of deck work, it's something I've actually flirted with the idea of for a while. Like, oh, it would be so cool once I have like a really robust collection just to try that. Like where you have one of every, or not like one of every Planeswalker, but you have only Planeswalkers and you still somehow make it work. Even if it's very odd. That just signifies what I'm all about. So this isn't really the deck that I was talking about, but we'll only try one game, whether we win or lose. And this was available last time too. In fact, this is one of the coolest modes imaginable because you get to just try all these kind of cards that you don't have. As a little Gollum thing, I just feel like all the art for some of these characters from Lord of the Rings doesn't look anything like it. And we're actually using a proper avatar for him. Now we just have to hope we get more land, because all of them are going to cost at least 3. Or like some of the best ones would be ones that cost like 1 or 2 just to get something out there, and even if it's something like a 1/1 to protect itself. Light Step Pathway, this is actually a great way for them to, you know, do microtransactions and skin type stuff. Just where you're able to basically, you should have made me discard a land. Or maybe you can't. Non-land card. But, you know, they can just extrapolate and make like a million different versions of the same thing, just with the different art for it. Yeah, that's how you know you live in a time that's way too sensitive or is kind of focusing on the wrong things. Something as broad and vague as that, as just a word, doesn't have to have one meaning only, right? Just because something can have a negative meaning doesn't mean that it has to only have that. And whenever you, oh shit, I'm still short actually, because when you extrapolate that and you assume that's the only intent, then it's like you can do that with anything. Okay, we got kind of lucky in a way. So which one is going to be actually more valuable? Up to 2 target creatures create 2 tokens, which is very necessary. A Flowers has 7 or more loyalty counters. He's a 7/7 dragon god creature with flying and indestructible. Target creature without okay, we have to do this. The good thing is we can do it twice without even, well, the problem is she doesn't have any,
I can escape my past no more than I can escape my shadow.
he doesn't have any other way to gain it back.
Heroes,
though.
rally
That's the
to
problem.
me.
So now if I do this guy, I can buff it. Without first strike, double strike, or vigilance, can't block or attack until your next turn. Okay, so those 2 1/1s are clearly going to carry me. I can do it again, but it'll be way too expensive. This is such a fun idea, though. I wish we get to the point eventually where I can do this. This is the kind of weird shit I would do. You can use any cards in the game. Oh, so make some meta busted deck. Oh no, I'll actually just make something suboptimal, garbage, weird gimmick, because that's just what I love to do. Search your graveyard. I'm not going to do that. Without first strike, double strike, or vigilance, can't attack or block until your next turn. Search your library for a card, put it in your hand. Of course, I don't have it. Or do I have it? I don't know if it lets you... I don't know if it lets you do that if... Like, I forget if I put multiple copies of this guy in there. But would it let you just end the search even if you did have it in there? That could almost be like a bluff for your opponent. Like, oh no, I don't have it. He would never just be a moron and not do anything with it. Up to 1 target creature's base power perpetually becomes equal to its toughness. It gains can attack as though it didn't have defender. Conjure a card named Lumbering Light Shield onto the battlefield. I don't know what that is though. Must be an equip card.
I'm here to protect you. Yes, all of you.
Or was it the one that's just like going to be a defender itself? So that kind of synergizes well
Nothing beats
with these effects. Doesn't this make it look like it's almost viable? Because this is an unlimited format where he could be using some busted stuff too. And you could play in this format all the time if you just had every card in the game and, you know, just play in historic, because I'm pretty sure, or no, even then you still couldn't do it because you're not able to do this whole ban list thing, which I don't understand in a way, because the whole point of historic, wild, whatever is just the fact that you're able to bypass that in the first place. The whole, like, it's a format where you can use every card in the history of the game, which is why it's always my favorite format. This guy doesn't even have defender though. Opponent reveals a non-land card from their hand, perpetual gains. Yeah, destroy my planeswalker. Oh no, whatever will I do? It's not like I have any others of them. By which I mean exactly the same one. Not even, you know, that we just have so many, period. So she was pretty good. She summons 2/1/1s. Whenever a creature attacks, put a +1/+1 counter. Creatures you control get +2/+2 and flying. Only until the end of the turn, though. That's kind of a bad effect, though, for 6. You have to work towards. +1/+1 counter, created 2/2 token. That's all I'm going for. Planeswalker token deck, even though that's not very efficient. You know, think about, I just paid 4 mana for a 2/2 basically. Look at this, dude. We're flooding the board.
Must protect the people.
So you can actually just keep doing this. But, you know, look how weakly they're playing on the board. This seems so silly, dude. You have to understand the circumstance this guy is in. He could be using something weird too, but he's going to do some infinite loop one-shot combo probably this turn. Sometimes when you play like a total clown way, they don't know how to deal with it. Like, it just short circuits their brain. Like, nobody would ever do what I'm doing right now, so they don't have a strategy around it. Your opponent can't figure out your strategy if you don't have one. The art of war. Yeah, we'll get a chance to see all these kind of cards that normally never get play. Although that's kind of weird, because you would think people would still do it. Or they're probably doing it more like towards mythic rank and stuff. This is one of my weirdest series ever, because it's like so laid back and just like there's no permadeath, there's no hard mode, there's no restriction. It's just like, just play the game. Play Magic the Gathering Arena, free to play, and that's the challenge. That's the format in the hard mode, because it's difficult to do that, even though difficult in what context, because it's like, it's not like I'm trying to get anywhere with it. I'm just trying to build up my collection in the first place. But, you know, doing arenas is very hard. Or I should say drafts. I mean, the whole game is called Arena, but that's what kind of ruins it for me with Hearthstone, just the namesake. That's not going to have, or wait, without First Strike, Double Strike, or Vigilance. So it does have, no, it still doesn't have it.
Consider the evil.
He becomes a 7/7. So he should just be dead, actually. I only wanted to do this one game. That's something of a format itself. Or wait, no, it might not be, because, well, he'd have to give up the 3. No. The 3/3 also didn't. I kind of forgot about his effect. That's actually an awesome card. Just the way that works. That it has like some sort of, that's like his ult. He got his ult meter up to 100%, like in one of these MOBA games. Overwatch or whatever. It is really cool. Normally you'd still have to pay into it, like, oh, you get X number of counters and then you have to do like a -7. Yeah, let's try to see, like, I can't remember sometimes what some of these other cards are that were in this weird deck that I've seen like a million times. It must be some sort of free-to-play budget healing buff shit. But basically it's a case where I kind of maybe block it out of my memory because I hate it so much, or we even have some of the black stuff in there. Is maybe not the best idea. I haven't gotten much value out of that. That's just in there as a gimmick. So what other cards were there? There's a guy who's actually green, who I can never remember what it is. I must not have it, or I should just look it up by effect. Whenever heal, something like that, but it won't do it back to back. Green card that mentions healing. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 3 life. It's like this villager or shopkeeper or something weird. Whenever something is healed, something happens, basically. How can that be? Maybe it has to be more exact with how you put it? How is it possible? It's either green or that. I can just look through every green card, I guess, in the game, and I'll find it. It's relatively low cost. That's actually the only other one I can think of. Then you have, like, that other lion guy who summons the 1/1s that are, like, auto-attacking. And attacking, right? So, that are tapped and attacking. Not even saying he's that good. So we do have 2 of those anyway. We don't even need more. Do we have them actually in here? Just because you see it so much doesn't mean it's good, right? It could just be some budget trash, but my standard of goodness is pretty low anyway. So the problem with even putting this green guy in there would be the simple fact that he's not going to be playable because I don't have the right color land for it. They just have so many cards that you would think, like, why would you normally keep those? Like in any other game, has some sort of disenchant crafting mechanic. Yu-Gi-Oh has it. Hearthstone has it. PvZ even has it. Like everything. So, where the heck is he? He's like a 1 or a 2 cost. He might be 2 cost. Yeah, look at how long it would take. I'm going to craft every green card in the game. That's the format. But that's more just like a, you know, a goal to work towards. Like I have a bias towards green stuff, but I've crafted plenty of stuff that isn't. Or like now we made the Carnage Tyrant, but I never get a chance to use him. In 3 of my ongoing card game series, I have gotten a card that I was so looking forward to using, and it took me so long to be able to do it. In PvZ Heroes, I got Dark Matter Dragonfruit, and it took me like 3 weeks before I could play it in a ranked match, because I do like a round robin, where if that every class gets basically its own chance, and if it loses, you have to move on to the next one. So the first week we don't get him, we lose. We get him the next time, but I don't get to play him, and I lose. So it took me that long, like 3 or 4 weeks. Then in Hearthstone, I still haven't played Sargeras. We got that like a few weeks ago, obviously. I've had him in my hand countless times. I've burned him. I've discarded him. I've been almost ready to play him, but I always lose before I get to. Or something else happens. I renounce darkness or something weird. But it just hasn't come together. And now here I made the Carnage Tyrant, and I have yet to play him, I think, because we're not even playing as green. So I'll still do the round robin here, that I only give this a chance until it loses, and I would never do that on purpose, clearly, just to throw in the fact that I hate this color of deck. Be careful how you say it. Yeah, I'm surprised. Why doesn't Magic just change those things? Because it's apparently offensive to just say colors. With no other context, no other meaning behind it. It's just the simple statement of a color in the game. But I love that it's sort of a beginner's joke that I was so oblivious. Oh yeah, this is the guy. Wait, why does he show up like I have him though? If why? Oh, that just means you have one of them. Cards of this set will rotate out of alchemy in the fall. They will remain playable in standard, but I don't care about either of those. I care about historic. Makes no difference. But yeah, probably a lot of people would criticize that, like, oh, just play in standard, but like, why? I can still see you could still play a standard deck in wild or historic, but you can't play a historic deck in standard. So for somebody who's never played the game before, never seen any of these cards before, why would you immediately go into a game and say, oh, I'm going to restrict myself from using 75% of the stuff in the game and just focus on the new stuff? The only real incentive to that is, oh, well, we want to just force, you know, the game itself wants you to encourage you to buy packs or something like that, right? And just indulge in the power creep. When it enters the battlefield, create a treasure token. Whenever another creature enters, you gain 1 life. Now that's cool, but how do I do it? How do I get that green? It almost doesn't even fit. Or you know what it makes me want to do? I'll make another one. So here, I'll do the battle between white and green. So I'll play my green deck, white deck on the rotation. So whichever one loses, we move on to the next one. But I'll make a green and white hybrid, which is something I never thought I'd do. So like my least favorite and my most favorite. I wanted to see this just to see if the Carnage Tyrant's actually in there. And I'm sure it would be, right? So it's not even like that good of a card, but 6 mana, 7/6, can't be countered, trample, hexproof. This card sums up. This is like my Blue Eyes White Dragon, Kaiba Jr., nickname of mine back in the day. Like, just you put something out there and force them to deal with it, which even this standard is pretty low because it's only a 7/6. Like, for the value, it's good, but you know, they'll have some crazy infinite loop or like a million things on the board. But like, if they can't deal with that in a couple of turns, you might just win on that strength alone. Mid-range board control mindset that I have. It seems like such a simple thing, but oftentimes that's not how it ends up working out. We could make like a green, or forget it. I'm too lazy to even do it. Let's just go between those two. We don't have to use that exact card. But the whole point is the whole degenerate buff, heal buff idea is at least in here to some extent, I think. In fact, the real mistake of this is not to have... which ones I should do that? Whenever you gain life, put a +1. Like, you can win. How many games did I lose to a simple effect like this? Because I just don't have removal. And in this game, you can't attack minions. So for somebody who doesn't typically like removal or doesn't typically use removal index, right? In this game, I barely use it at all. In fact, most of mine relies on... Most of the removal that I do use relies on having minions on the board in the first place, like Master's Rebuke. So you just can't get rid of it, ever. Or at least until it becomes too strong to deal with. And then when it's, you know, becomes a 5/5 10/10 and you don't have anything strong enough to block it, then you of course don't have removal for it then either, because even what removal you do have is going to be like Rebuke, and it's not going to do enough damage to kill them. So I certainly don't have hard removal in that sense, but the idea behind it is that just because you simply can't attack minions, even a simple effect like that can do so much to you. Yeah, we'll just rotate between these two, and we'll do a best of 3 match. So even if we win both or we lose both, I'll still measure it by who does better. Or you know what? Let's incorporate the red guy too, because I want to. So we'll do red, white, and blue, or no, red, white, and green. Right, like the little Sarkhan thing. Or this is exactly how I was doing it last time. I guess I just thought I would give some sort of preferential treatment to white, but I'll do it by just going first, and clearly it'll have the best record of the 3. So we're still doing like sort of a, you know, put its feet to the fire and test how well it does. So whichever one does best is the one that gets more screen time, basically, in what is a pretty limited scheduling scenario anyway. Like, the idea of playing them once a week isn't so bad, but the fact that I play it so little when I do is a little bit uncharacteristic. Or the only way I would do that, like any of these card games I do, the only way I would do that is a secondary series. So even then I would do it for like 2-3 hours instead of like 1 to 2 hours, but it would be after doing something else. Now the secondary series becomes the primary just because I don't have enough. Okay, that's actually a pretty good hand as far as the cost of a lot of these. You have one target in your graveyard. It seems like, oh wow, it's so concerning, but in and of itself, I don't really have much support for it. I've never won a game because of that effect. I've never really done anything too valuable with it. It just kind of scares them a bit. Exile creature you own. This is the ultimate combo right here. Creature become ring bearer, only fitting that it would be him. So what exactly causes the ring to tempt you anyway? I always forget. Halfling Scout. The halfling was dear to you, I see. Mouth of Sauron, one of those characters that has immediate impact and just, you know, iconic the way they show him, at least. In very limited screen time, and I think it was a deleted scene too. Oh, creature, then return it. This ring tempts you. So that would be one way to do it, for example. Just do that 4 times and we actually have a win condition. So the whole beauty of that is just, we would have it, but now we don't have Frodo. We do have 3 copies of him in there. It'd be kind of weird if we end up winning games because of that, because that's not really the point of what I'm doing here. Or it just makes it such a good, we better not do that. Can't be blocked with creatures of greater power. Whenever attacks, draw a card. We could do this again. I don't really even care about attacking myself. Or the fact that you could have done it after that too, right? You could have attacked and still done it. You could even do it on their turn, no? Is that really all you would have to do? So it's tempted me 4 times. And so each opponent loses 3 life. all I would have to do is hit him with Frodo, but I don't have a way to really make it any better because, like, I need a way to give him haste or something to actually make it work. But it's not really, that's what it's built around. It just happens to be, oh, that's kind of a cool, fun effect, so let's just play for it. Another creature enters the battlefield, +1/+1 counter. Enters the battlefield tapped. I guess I could do that just for the sake of more land, but I love some of the extrapolations on the land pictures though. Like, wow, it's a city, but it's plains. Yeah, we built a city over the plains and killed all the wildlife and destroyed everything. That's really so. Artifact or enchantment, gain 3 life. Whenever you cast a spell, remove any number of counters. It deals that much damage to any target. Since I don't really have a play anyway, I guess we could do it. Or I should have played that still and then set up for... Or I can still do it. But yeah, we wouldn't even have the 3 black that we would need in order to do the Frodo effect that way either. Right? You have to first transform him. I don't think I've seen anybody else use that effect either. I've seen maybe a couple of people use the card, but they end up beating me without even needing to do that, or it never gets to that point. A lot of these cards are not particularly high value either. This is like just some starting garbage thing. There's nothing really special about it, but flying in general is such a troll mechanic sometimes. Why do so many people use this base card back? There's so many of them that you get. Wait, what? Well, that's not too big of a deal. Like, there's so many that you get for just playing for free and stuff. You don't really have to go out of your way or buy them from the shop. But I've been using this dragon for way too long as my pet. I gotta waste my gold on something else. Therum Core Chimera. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put an oil counter, deal 3 damage to creature or planeswalker, whatever. I should be able to just attack here. Now, would Sam be able to bring back Frodo? Is that really the point of it? Creature to be a ring bearer. I don't know. Enters the battlefield, chooses up to 1 target permanent that was in your graveyard battle. Oh, it has to be this turn though. You don't even really have to do anything, just attack. Attack, draw a card, then discard a card. What do I want to do? This you don't really need anymore because, or you could use that to kind of save it from something, right? They're about to use a removal on it to destroy it, and then you... What does that remind me of? There's some Yu-Gi-Oh card like that or something that Kaiba would use. It's like... I kind of like this guy's effect, but it's too expensive to really be viable, right? To sort of lock them down and piss them off. And most people don't play like that. Even decks that don't really seem to be built around Swarm or Aggro end up summoning like 1,000,000 tokens or something over time just because I'm so slow with how I do something. Or you know what my favorite flying card in the game so far is, that at least that I've had, is that 7/7 dragon for green. So it's like green doesn't always have flying cards, but when it does, it's just so goddamn amazing. You roll a dice and buff everything for +20/+20. Deal 3, fine. Yeah, that guy was clearly such a big threat. Maybe blocker creatures are greater power. The best you could trade into it. Or I guess you wouldn't have to, because they could have more health still, even if the power is the same. Okay, maybe I should have just done that, but it seems like a waste. Yeah, if I happen to get Frodo and he happens to stick around and he happens to hit them in the face, then... Or maybe he already has that as a base effect. I don't even know. Rogue with whenever deals combat damage to the player. No, it doesn't have any other effect to it. We can just kind of hang around. Although he's been a little bit too comfortable with that. So actually, let's get rid of it. Toughness of 4 or greater. Or imagine if you do that incorrectly. And then it's like, oh, you have to use it. You can't take it back. And then, yeah, that's kind of pointless. And then you're forced to destroy your own thing. Kind of a weird way to go about it, but we did always get the ring tempting up to such a good threshold that could be a potential win condition on top of it. budget Frodo flying buff heal weird hybrid thing that doesn't actually mimic what I was going for that much. I typically don't craft too many of the same thing, right? As much as I am flipping and spend my wild cards too much, whenever I have them, I can't keep them. You know, I just always feel like, oh, I want to craft this thing. The fact of the matter is that, you know, I'll typically craft one of different things. Even if I feel like one is better for the same effect, I'll still just do it for a variety of cards. Useless to meet revenge with revenge, it will heal nothing. Is that him sort of telling me that I shouldn't take revenge by using this deck that clowned me so many times? And that's just, it's more triggers me, not even because I've lost to it so many times, but just because it's so overused, right? That's part of why I like Historic, for example, is the simple fact that I like all these low cost hands, at least. It's just the fact that you see, you know, Historic has such a variety of cards, every card in the history of the game. So people would, of course, use other weird and creative and inventive stuff, but then it devolves into, they just won't do that, and they'll all use the same thing because it's meta or whatever. Equip creature gets +1/+1, but you can kind of just leave it out there and then equip it later, which is kind of a unique way to look at equip cards. Most games would force you to have something out there and put it on directly when you play it. This game basically just has no limits. That's what's so good about it. The deck can have 250 cards. The field can have infinite minions. We saw that interaction in Hearthstone yesterday, but that was only because it was like a fusion effect or whatever. What the fuck is it called? I forgot. It was magnetic. So it stretches the board out farther than it can actually be unless they change something else. Enters the battlefield, yes, +2/+0. But no, there's 250 cards. There's no limit to the things on the board. You can have as many enchantments as you want. You can have as many as artifacts, as many planeswalkers. There's just nothing. You can just do whatever you want. May as well do that. Now I have the life gain thing down, but now all I need is something that's going to keep getting buffed. Of course, this guy does have a decent amount of removal at least. Or a lot if it came from that one insect chimera thing. Definitely chimera would not have been the first word I would think of to use to describe that. Yeah, we're just kind of farming out for the thing. Do our little daily quests, which are more like weekly quests. So this is the kind of combo that we're looking for. And then you can just sit here for like 50 turns and then get this sort of infinite loop. But I'm sure he'll have removal for it. It is kind of bizarre how little removal you see compared to the fact that it's a game where you can't attack minions. So they could just leave around an effect and it's going to annoy you the whole game. You do have this laying around. Equip creature gets +1/+1. Equip creature can't be blocked. I want to play some other version of Magic 2 at some point. Either like a super old school one where you only have access to the older cards, or a scenario where you're basically able to, I don't know, like just whatever is a super well-known version of it. Whenever it attacks, you get to obviously discard and draw and stuff. Or wait, you have to wait for it to get to a point first. Yeah, getting the ring to tempt you is kind of a little bit awkward sometimes. Something will get +2/+0. This would also give it +1/+1. So you could block the 2/1 just for the sake of it. Yeah, I've seen this other one where like it's either like a fan-made one or it's like more, whatever, old school, where it just seems like one of those deck builder things like Yu-Gi-Oh! Type Kaibu Core Virtual Duel System or Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro or something like that. So it's more antiquated UI and stuff, but it might give you a more authentic experience of how the game actually works. So that could be blocked with greater power, but it's not greater power. I can't actually do anything, surprisingly. This 2/4 is this whole ace card because the effect is actually pretty good. That's one of the annoying bugs about it. If you tab out, not that you can see me really tabbing out, but if you tab out, you're able to not hear the audio for like a second. It kind of cuts off a bit. I almost do want to win a game with the Frodo effect just for the fun of it, but it's not that easy to do. The main thing you would need is just a combo to give it pace. And so other than that, I can handle getting the 4 temp things, although I haven't done too well with it here. Creature gets +1/+1, so if I was able to do that, he wouldn't be able to kill it by blocking it. Maybe you can still try to do that, and then he'll just... Wait, but why would you let me do it then? Flying Vigilance, if another angel you control enters the battlefield for the +1/+1. We didn't really build around the angels too much. We just happen to have them because they're all flying stuff. So this sort of color represented all the things I hated in the game. Flying, healing, buffing, just stuff that requires you to actually pay attention to what they're doing and not force them to pay attention to what you're doing, basically. Another creature enters the battlefield. I mean, I still would rather do this just because we want these buffs to go on fleek. But we lost the other guy who gets buffed anyway. Unfortunately, I can't attack with any of the other ones, though, still. It seems unlikely that you wouldn't just block with the 2/4, and it's fine. We live in, like, an era where it's like, oh my goodness, what if somebody... Like there's all this stuff in history, like, oh, cabin fever, or, like, people going all, you know, crazy from being alone or getting bored out of their minds and stuff. In this day and age, if you just had the internet somewhere, there's so much shit you can do that people do anyway. Right, like, oh, you know, being alone will drive somebody crazy, but then, I don't know why I did it to that one. But then even when they're not alone, they'll be like, here, let's just really milk the buffing. They choose to just sit there and ignore their, you know, their friend or their partner or whatever and play video games on the computer or read a book or watch a movie or whatever, so it ends up being so ironic. Oh, you'll be stranded on a deserted island for like 10 years of your life. Can you handle it? Sure, I'll just play Hearthstone and WoW and Skyrim and all this stuff all the time. As long as I can still play it online or whatever. Even if not, like the pace I go at, I'll still be playing Skyrim by then. So this is an annoying board that he's throwing all non-land permanents, which would include mine, of course. Maybe I'll set up for a play for that. Or I'll still start poking him with the flying stuff. Or see how the longer the game drags out, this is exactly what's going to happen. Is just that you're not going to be able to deal with all this. You'll have to block it with multiple things, or you'll have to at least trade it in. So that 6/6 is going to be pretty good. Yeah, you abuse the fact in a context of... I'm surprised you did it like that. You abuse the fact of... this whole non-trading thing. Because they can't choose to attack into your stuff, you know it's safe to buff, you know it's safe to heal, and you know it's safe to just kind of leave it around and let them, you know, and block with it. And you even know that, okay, that even when you attack, then they can only block with their own flying stuff. So you're kind of playing around and into the fact of how just that mechanic is so unique to this game. Of, are you sure you already have a copy? Oh, right. That's one of the restrictions you have. Toughness of 4 or greater. Yeah, I actually should just destroy that clown thing because the only thing that's really going to stop me from hitting him here. I almost do want to use that where he doesn't have any other flying, so he just has to tank it. Although technically he could keep attacking me with a 4/4, but it's going to be too late for him. So now my health value alone guarantees that I win because he's never going to be able to catch up that way. Look how stupid this style of play is. It's not even saying it's that good because we're playing at a low, shitty rank. Imagine we just play this kind of casually for a couple hours and get mythic just like it's nothing. This will be our Pyro Warrior, but it couldn't be because just the nature of the style of play is also going to take forever. You should certainly be able to... You should certainly be able to just attack in with everything and you'll be fine. There's no... Yeah. Even you get this kind of slow-paced satisfaction out of what you're doing where you feel like you're, you know, stalling out just to troll them. So it does actually win pretty flawlessly. Now we could give the other two a chance to say, like, we don't have to do it in a row. we'll still do those ones and see which one does best. So they could do technically the same, right, as that. And then we'd have to do it all over again to do a tie break. But then what's even the point? Because you're only doing it a second time. I don't know. Or that would just decide what I do, period, whether, regardless of how we perform from that point on. So even when it does as well as possible and sweeps the guy, right, 2-0, we still find a way to circumvent it and say, oh, well, I'll still play as the other ones to see which one does the best out of them. And then we'll let that one have the chance to get a second one. Or whatever. Then that'll just be what I do the rest of the time. So it's going to be hard to beat that one. The best you could do is tie it. So it's almost guaranteed that we will play the white again. I do not love the Brian. See, this is kind of a way it's skewed too. If you were to watch, like, let's say I upload every episode of Magic I've done. If you were to watch them, you'd be like, wow, this is the most boring series ever, because he's just playing in some of the same decks over and over every time. Typically green, typically that same idea of like just the ramp and the mid-range value and stuff. Gigantosaurus, Galta, stuff like that. But it doesn't feel so bad for me as I'm doing it, because I only play it once a week. And I only play it for a couple hours, so it's like, oh yay, every week I get to play a few games of that fun green deck that I like so much. So if I was to do it like in sequence, like if I played it every day, or if I played it longer, or something, then it would start to wear on me. But it's like, if I'm doing like 7 different things once a week, even for a short period of time, it's kind of hard to explain. But if you were to do the same thing every day, then it would get boring. Or if you were to do the same thing for like extremely long periods of time in a row, then it would be fine. You're sort of circumventing both, right? You're only doing it once a week. You're only doing it for short periods of time. You barely, wait, why is it a draw? Well, that doesn't count against us. Well, what happened? There's some sort of connection issue, but it shouldn't be any result at all then. That's like when you abort a game in chat. You just don't even want to deal with that. Your opponent can be any opponent in a person from any background, but there's one background that you wouldn't acknowledge in existence, apparently, according to, that's not the game, but Twitch itself. That's a pretty nice avatar. And I thought I had a good poker face. So this guy's bronze, which means it's actually going to be a hardcore tryhard, because those actually tend to do better. It's easier to beat gold and platinum players sometimes than it is to be bronze. You can't really judge it by that. But I am definitely a big fan of this best of 3 format. I just miss doing like longer streams now a little bit, but my schedule is such that I just can't do it. Or rather, I say that, and I just did a 14-hour stream and an 8-hour stream, 10-hour stream last week, just on like Tuesday and Saturday. But no, I'm saving it all for chess now. But I like this sort of dynamic quality. Like every once in a while, I'll be like, oh, I have to get Legend this month, or I have to delete my account, or I have to do the Brawliseum, right? Like in Hearthstone, or I have to delete my collection. So basically, we could do that with Magic at some point. Like, oh, December of this year, I have to get, not that I'm saying I'm going to do that specifically, but I have to get Mythic, or I have to delete my account. So I would unironically do some sort of challenge like that, despite the amount of time we put in. And so, you know, it'll seem like a casual series for a while, but then there'll be a moment of payoff for it. Either that'll be like the grand finale, or that'll be like a checkpoint or something, just to keep it interesting. So every few months with Hearthstone, I would do that. September of last year, I had to get Legend, and I did, obviously. Then, what did I do after that? I might not have done anything until the Brawliseum, which I forget even when that was now. Like, I have to win 12 games in the Brawliseum, go 12 and 2 in 3 tries, not collectively, but like at least have one run that's going to be where you win it. For the whole Death Knight Completionist Challenge, where I have to disenchant every card in my collection, which I obviously failed at. And not only did I fail, but I failed spectacularly. The best I won was like 3 games, 2 or 3 games in between 3 of them. So my total wins was not even 12, even if I was to count it like that. Why are the last 2 opponents behaving like this? The one guy aborted out and drew, or maybe that was just a bug with the game. This chick is just AFK. Yeah, that could be a little meme skit that you do. Is like assuming people's genders online. Am I going based on the avatar that they're using and the character they're playing? Because that's never something anybody abides by. I play female characters all the time in games, because that's the whole point. It's a game, you can do whatever you want. I'm also not an orc. I'm also not a troll. Like whatever, characters you might be playing. I'm also not a mage in real life. So why should that be any different? But, you know, based on their username, you kind of have to guess and extrapolate. We had Luke Carr, who was actually bothered by that a bit, because I would always say he takes, I take. But obviously, in that case, it was a female player. But it's a bad habit that I've gotten into of always saying that. It's not even that you should say she takes instead. You should just say they take or whatever. Because you're not really thinking about that, but shit. Well, I don't know how well. Yeah, this one's actually even better because we win a best of 3 in one game. How do you manage to do that? Actually, I will say yes. I'm very happy with disconnecting, giving me more bots for people with bad internet. But unfortunately, we're still not able to do the daily quest from that, so it doesn't do me much good. This one we should be able to do. We just got 2 in a row. Well, no, the first one was a draw, though, technically. 20 red spells, 40 creature spell. Like, those should be pretty easy to do. I hate these weeks where I play this, and then I still don't even complete what is effectively a weekly quest for me, right? Like, if I don't do any of these 3, then we're not only missing out from whatever days I don't play it until next Monday, but we don't even get to, you know, do them on a weekly basis. That's how bad it is. Like, we just had that happen with PvZ Heroes, where there's like that weekly quest, deal 300 damage to enemy opponents, and it's like they only have 20 health per game, so how am I supposed to even do that? It just takes too long, even if you're doing well and winning every game. But you can control how you react to them. Yeah, what I don't know what the other version of Magic there is. That is an interesting thing about the Twitch categories. They have one category for Magic the Gathering, period. There's like a million different games, single player games, open world, old school, dynamic roguelike game, whatever. They have, you know, deck creators, in-game, in real-life tournaments, this game, countless other things, but there's just one category. And that shows you how badly, arguably, the category does then, because there's only, you know, there's only still like 4 or 5K people watching. So Hearthstone actually outshines Magic in that regard. Not that you can measure the game just by Twitch views, but that is a little bit surprising. This game alone should be on par, if not better, than Hearthstone in terms of views. And I say that as even the biggest Hearthstone fan in the world. That's my whole objectivity. I can bash Diablo, but I still recognize some good things about it. I can love Hearthstone, but I can still say, oh, this is better in some ways. Or I could say, like, you know, with WoW and EverQuest, like, whenever a game it borrows off of another one, there's no shame in that. I would say they maybe made it better, or I'm not really even qualified to say because I've only played EverQuest once and very briefly, but Blizzard is basically the king of aesthetics historically. Like, they'll take other games like EverQuest and make them better or more casualized or present them in a way that is more appealing to a mass base. You could say, oh, maybe they dumb them down in some ways, but they do it very well. I would vouch for WoW at least that way. And then, like, basically they do the same thing with Hearthstone. They take Magic and present it so beautifully well that even ironically Magic ends up taking after its presentation, right, with this game. If it wasn't for Hearthstone, they might not have made, well, they would have made some digital card game, but it wouldn't have been exactly like this. Right? It wouldn't have looked like this. It wouldn't have felt, there's just something about it. Like how I was making fun of, oh, every game copied Overwatch, people say, but then Overwatch itself was inspired by Team Fortress 2 and stuff like that. There's always some inspiration behind it. So yes, this game copied Hearthstone. Every game copied Hearthstone in terms of presentation, but in a weird sense, obviously Hearthstone copied Magic in a lot of ways too. So it's like a give and take. It's almost what happened with the Mentalist and Psych. It's like it's just so blatantly obvious that the Mentalist copied it, but they sort of do it too strongly. Like, I love the Mentalist, but there are certain episode plots that they copy the premise, right? Oh, it's about a detective who's psychic or pretends he's psychic or whatever. People think he's psychic. There's a psychic element right between them. But then what ends up happening is, oh shit, did I miscalculate? I thought that would be enough to kill it, actually. That I'm throwing. But no, they copy certain episode plots, like, oh, somebody has a bomb and they pretend like the bomb's about to go off, so then it forces them to defuse it, thereby proving they're the killer, because only the killer would know how to defuse the bomb, stuff like that. But they copy exact plot points like that down to the T. That part they definitely didn't need to do. It's one thing, okay, you're inspired by the premise, you know. We have the type advantage. There's no reason why we should lose to a green deck because, you know, we have fucking grade 2 treasure tokens. I don't really like the spot that I'm in right now. That was a horrific play last turn. You don't have flying, or you do have reach. Never mind. Create a 3/3 whenever it attacks or blocks. That's a pretty good card. Let's craft it, but it's mythic. Or it confuses me always because whenever a card is legendary, I always think, oh, that means it'll be, you know, require mythic wild card. But those are two separate things. There's plenty of legendaries that aren't mythics. Like most planeswalkers, even seemingly are legendary. This thing is actually pretty awesome. 5 mana 6/6. What's the downside? Wait, what the fuck is that? As much as I've seen all these great caliber green cards, and I'm always talking about 5 mana 10/10. It's a 5 mana 6/6 with Vigilance, Trample, Reach. When it attacks or blocks, create a 3/3, gain 3 life, or draw a card. What's the downside then? Like, what? It doesn't even have that pseudo downside of like, whatever, just you have to all occasion socks. Nice name. Try to guess what she wants for Christmas, and then you see her playing Magic, and that's what it is. She wants a pair of socks that are good for all year. We can still come back, but then it's still behind the 8 ball in terms of red or white. What was I saying? Oh yeah, like that one doesn't even have the pseudo cost of, oh well, it only costs green to do, right? Like, oh, Gigantosaurus costs 5 green and green only, so that's why he's such good value. But that when you're like me and you tunnel vision on one color anyway, then this sort of defines like my style of play. I don't like removal. I don't like variety of the colors in terms of, you know, hybrid decks and stuff. Look how inefficient this deck is, though. It's just so stupid because, you know, you have to play something like this to be able to make everything else cost effective. Otherwise, it's all just trash value. It couldn't be that I just have all the worst dragons in the game, right? Like, obviously, some of them must just be expected to be poor value, because that's just how they work, I guess. Because you might say, oh, because they're flying, but there's plenty of stuff that's flying that doesn't pay such a toll as far as its cost. A lot of their effects are kind of just silly and unnecessary. Let's see if you choose the right one. Should obviously be the shaman. He's gonna be sniping me to come up with that play. Let's see. You could use the token to get that 3/3. For 3, it gets +1 with 0. It's like they try to troll you with some of these effects. The 2/4 gets +2/+0 till end of turn. When it dies, its power is greater than 0. Note its power. You get a boon with when you cast your creature. When you cast your next creature. So I mean, we can just do it. Period. Yeah, that guy's a 4 mana 2/4. Guy's a 4 mana 2/2. This is a 5 mana 3/3. Like, when do we just get like a 5 mana 5/5? Or that's how I love to sort of inform my card crafting decisions and stuff. Just like, we'll see something cool and I want to make it, like how I did with Sarkhan. So we're not really metagaming or net decking or doing anything like that. It's just whatever happens to catch my fancy at the time. Yeah, you realize over time how bullshit the mechanic in Pokemon is of like, oh, just like a type advantage, it's rock, paper, scissors. Sure, it encourages you to build decks that are going to have a variety of stuff in them and not just commit to one thing, but it's like, you'll lose a game, not because of the RNG of, oh, I drew the wrong card in the wrong order, or, you know, they just got lucky draws and stuff like this, or, you know, whatever, just RNG with your deck itself, which is inherent to card games anyway. No, you'll lose because of type advantage on top of that, just with respect to the stupid idea of just how stupid it is that, oh, you know, you get double damage for no reason other than that. Like, it's part of the strategy of the game, but it's also like, I don't know, it's something very antithetical sometimes to how card games are designed. It has a lot of green cards I've never seen before. You're getting a little bit low, and it's going to be hard to gain 5 life. When it leaves the battle created 3/3, a lot of cards that really seemingly don't have downsides or anything to them. Okay, this time at least I'm going to have to block. Let's attack with that one instead, then we can at least block a few of these. We won't be able to kill it though, and he has too much health. But yeah, this should be the only chance I get to do the daily quest. Then if I don't do it within one best of 3 or keep the guy alive, this guy did horribly, so he should just be ousted. Although maybe the first game I could have won because at least in the best of 3 you can't complain about RNG, like, oh, they just got lucky. I mean, you could survive this, it's just vigilance doesn't even bother me too much. You know what, that's actually kind of worth it, because now you'll only take 4 and then I'll still be able to deal with it next turn. This card is kind of poor cost value. I mean, the fact that it can deal damage to a player is pretty good, but and then the one that would have a positive effect for dying, he's even the only one that doesn't die. Deal 5 and then you could block the other 2. Would be pretty good actually. Oh, but you can't even do that. Only Planeswalker, so it's even worse than what I was saying. You obviously can't attack. You can block the 3/3 without dying. You could trade into the 4/3. You can't do anything to the 4/5. And at some point, people just keep flooding the board in a way. Okay, dude. Board in a way that you just can't deal with. That did pretty bad. Did we actually do the daily quest? I doubt it, because we would have had to summon 20 things. Even though 12, yeah, we're just not going to be able to do it then. How did we win that whole? I guess that guy didn't summon too many creatures. This is like a deceptive daily quest thing that is harder to do than you would think, because of the simple fact that, you know, you're only doing that when they block stuff. We'll give this one a shot, and then white would basically take over. Or yeah, I want to look at that one thing, which I obviously don't have the mythic wild card to be able to make that, but it was a very cool thing, like a 6/6. I'm sure I don't have it either. It was like a 6/6 for 5 or something. Was it like Elder? Like, why does that even show up? I guess because it has green somewhere in there. Oh yeah, here we go. Elder Gargaroth. Vigilance, Trample, like, it's just one of those great value cards that has no downside whatsoever, which you might think is common with mythic ideas, but that is very good. Or like, let's just look up all the mythic cards for this, but I guess not. How are you supposed to do that? Just M? Name, definition, code, power, toughness, rarity. What does that mean? Yeah, like when how many games have this sort of thing as a legend to look through them? This shows you the complexity of it right there. M. If you just look up M, is that, how would it know based on that though? You would think Mythic should work as a command. Just, I don't actually get it. Mythic Rare, you can just do it from here. There's going to be only the green one, so which ones do I not have? That would actually be interesting. Or let's actually look through just for the base value. A 1/1 that can be countered. Green spells you control can be countered. Until the end of turn, each elf for 6 you control has base power toughness 5/5, becomes a dinosaur in addition to other creature types. Interesting. This guy looks very cool. 2 mana, power equal to the number of card types among cards in all graveyards, and its toughness is so that you can even take advantage of their hybrid quality even if you don't do it yourself. Toughness is equal to that plus 1. Other past bats, snakes, insects, and spiders you control get +1/+1. When it dies, you gain 4 life. 3 mana 3/2 with some good effects. 3 mana 3/4. There are quite a good number of these. We've been trolled by this flying squirrel thing a lot. Whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, exile a card from a graveyard. Spells you cast cost 1 less for each card type they share exiled with it. This is just a planeswalker, which I almost don't even care about. Untap 1 target elf. That elf in a random. This doesn't even seem worthy of it. Seek an elf card, conjure a regal force onto the battlefield 5/5. I guess just the fact that it's so low cost makes it kind of unique. Let's just look for something really well statted. 3 mana 5/5. I made a whole bunch of these god cards early on once I saw the world tree, because it's like I was just so overwhelmed by how crazy that seemed. Titania, I always think of Path of Radiance. He's like one of those overpowered carry units in the beginning of the game that you get in every Fire Emblem. Lands you control have add 1 mana of any color. Which is kind of insanely good. Yeah, I just haven't been a big fan of planeswalkers, or I haven't used them much, or even like my favorite mechanic, which is hexproof. I guess either somehow the name didn't grab me, or I didn't connect it to what I like so much, but it took me a very long time to actually do that. This guy had a potential to be one of my favorite cards, but the fact that you can pay 2 to negate it is kind of annoying. Yeah, I'd gladly pay the price of like, there is no pay 2 to nullify the abilities, but that can be construed as helping you, like, any player may activate it, so you wouldn't be able to play anything besides non-creature spells, but I'm okay with that. So I'll make only creature spells, but then he can't do anything about this for its immense value that it has. 4 mana 4/4. This guy is amazing, though. This should be my next one, even regardless of not being part of hexproof or anything else. It's just a good value card. 5 mana 6/5. Trample whenever a permanent you control becomes target of spell or ability, you may draw a card. We have that 1 mana card that does the same thing anyway, though, so why bother? This is a 5 mana 5/6 reach. When it enters reveal top 5 cards, put a land card among them onto the battlefield, rest in the graveyard. When it dies, you may exile it. Put another card, and that's not too interesting. Yeah, can you imagine we made this instead of the Carnage Tyrant? So maybe this will be our first time ever playing it. And I don't know how much I played as green anyway besides that, but for some reason I didn't even think of this as being mythic, but like, I should see it. How many mythic cards have I actually crafted, or how many wild cards have I gotten over the course of this run? It's obviously been enough to make like some legend god tier caliber deck time and again, but even that, unfortunately, even if I had done that, it changes over time. So how would you be able to judge it? Right, like it would be legend caliber for a couple seasons or a couple months, and then it'll die out. Or you know what I've never done is I've never gotten on the mastery pass to even like one of those portraits or rewards. It just takes way too long. And even on the reward track in this game really trolls you, because look at what it does when you get to the end of it. So it punishes you. Not like, oh, it'll still keep giving you a pack, or it'll give you like a little bit of gold. It'll give you fucking nothing. If you play the game this much, wow, I got to rank 68. I got to infinite. Nothing. You can't give like 1 gold. Like, this is the biggest troll thing I've ever seen. Like, it gives you reasonable stuff all the way throughout. Like, okay. So here we got about to 20. So if we had that, we would be able to do it. And I wouldn't mind doing that with gems either. Stars in 7 days. So within 7 days, would I get to rank 27 or 25 to be able to do that? I highly doubt it. It's hard for me to measure exactly how long it takes to even rank up there like that, but who cares? Or just be one really cool portrait that I want. That doesn't even seem that unrealistic to only get to 25, but time to explore the codex of the multiverse. You can find it in the top right of the main menu. Doesn't mean that stupid annoying wisp thing is going to talk to me though. Your creatures can attack your opponent or their planeswalkers when you click creature to attack. I love how when I upload like a first episode of some of these things, you realize how stupid it is. Like, people will be judging you on that. Like, you're not doing that to try to show off. You're just playing the game, right? Like for the first time, and I even like to go in blind and stuff. But people are holding that like, oh my goodness, you know, you're so bad, or you're judging it in a certain way. Like you're supposed to be bad when you're first playing it. It's more like, you know, there's one extreme or the other. Like when you're trying to do something that's hard or a challenge or permadeath or something, then you'll know it because that'll be the point of it. And then if you fail, sure, you suck. So that part is fine. But when you're first playing a game, I don't really understand going in with that mindset. Like people who've played the game for 10 years or something, whatever the game might be, it could be an MMO or something, will have that mindset like, oh, look how bad this person is. I'm sure the first time they played it, they were so good. Why is this taking so long now? QQ. Let's have your non-creatures that float. Yeah, it's a weird preconceived thing because you're not trying to really prove anything with it there in the tutorial. Like, who's trying to show off in the tutorial? This is pretty bad, or at least the white can be kind of a little bit annoying. Or, I mean, the blue. I still have my mind on that. But no, it's just the basic fact that you only have the one color to worry about, right? The one white or the one blue. And so that can be fulfilled by the carotid or the taxidermist and stuff like that. So that part I don't mind because, you know, it might seem bad, like, oh, how am I going to do this hybrid thing? But nothing is really too demanding that way. We weren't actually able to do the one daily quest there for red because I'm only going to give it one shot. But it seems like unless green does really well, even if green does perfectly, though, it's going to be hard because you're going to have a problem, you know, equalizing them out. So if we go 2-0 here against a platinum player, that's what makes it kind of unfair. You should almost give a benefit of doubt based on that, but I can't guarantee I'll go 2-0, but I'm definitely going to win. And that is like the farthest I've been, too. But it's not like I really play with the intention to try to ladder, although that 1 month I was. Add one tree for each creature you control. Kind of not all that special, but 6/6 is pretty good. They're going to have some crazy shit later on, but a lot of the removal is not going to work at least, or they have to pay 2 to then be able to do it. And so we might want to rebuke that if he starts to flood the board. But let's see if he brings out something better. I mean, that is good, but would it be worth it to rebuke that? Or would I rather do it on the mana dude? What is a 4/4 really going to do to us anyway? He can't even attack with it. I can just kind of sit here and slow pace him. We'll do this, and then I'll even do it on itself just to... Or I could do it to this guy. Like, this is such a weird card that's just, it's there just because of Hexproof. I'll just do it to keep it around. No, I could attack with this guy still. In fact, I could even attack with that because you're not, oh, look at that. We're getting a platinum player to rage quit out. You could have just gone out to a bad start. Don't underestimate them. Or that's sometimes what I say that I don't like because it seems like a cop-out. Like, oh, you know, maybe he's using a fun gimmick deck too. But I mean, I'm just so jaded to that idea that, like, nobody really seems to ever do that. This thing I like a lot because it'll force them to stop hiding cowardly with their 1/1s, and, you know, it actually forces you to have to trade in. He kind of knows what my style is now, at least ramp-wise. And this was mythic, and then it became gold, so I don't know why they did that. It didn't even get nerfed, seemingly. It was just... Yeah, see, even they're using a basic card bag. It almost makes me think they're bots, but... that's the only way I could be winning, clearly. Go ahead and do this. Attack with the 4/4. Or you could even do this, too. Then, you know, he's immediately a 2/2 at least, as soon as you attack. Yeah, at least these are sort of decks that I've come up with myself. Just patented style of, whatever, just mid-range ramp stuff. Oh, wow. Speaking of vouching for that card, we were just considering crafting that, actually. Now we could beat you down with the Invisible Stalker, especially if I could buff it. But unfortunately, if you have any sort of removal now, it could be difficult. Flying is obviously difficult to deal with. Oh, come on, dude. My legendary is at least not mythic. Or see, that's not even legendary, so it's kind of hard to judge that. 2+1/+1s, like, at some point I could try to, you know, let that equalize with the 7/7. So this you could block with both, but it would be worth it because even considering trample, you could kill it, but it's okay. Right, at least we get rid of one of them, although it's kind of stupid because it summons the 3/3, but then when it dies... No, not when it dies. Yeah, that would be too much. When it attacks, blocks, and dies, it summons the 3/3. You know, in some contexts, that would be like it would kill both because it's doing 12 to both, but the way it splits damage like that is kind of a little bit annoying. Okay, dude. I'm not questioning the fact that you have 3 of those in your deck. I'm questioning the fact that you have 3 at once like that. The rebuke would be great, but I can only do it once we get the buff. Beginning of combat on your turn, so let's just do it that way. Make the troll do it. And the whole beauty is, okay, go ahead and block me, but I'm going to rebuke you in the middle of the block, so it'll negate. Right, like you'll block with both, or maybe you won't, but we'll get rid of one of them and my buff will outshine yours, basically. And of course the hexproof isn't in here just sort of as a bonus, but I do love the mechanic. Right, I should keep attacking with Invisible Stalker. This is where I mess up, and that'll be the difference in the game. Right, that just bypasses everything. This is like such a my mindset kind of card. You can just troll them with this. You can't target it, you can't destroy it. You can obviously AoE it, but these buffs might start to get out of hand a little bit though. Or the same way they could attack with the flying thing, but they keep choosing not to do it. So this dude's a clown anyway, but he's got trample, so I'll just let him do it. Okay, that'll be fine even if he manages to target something. Now we can start to share the love a bit, I guess. Oh, that could be what's so good. Let's just play to block, and then we'll keep killing you with that. See how these synergies come together. An unblockable hexproof thing that you can buff, but they can't do anything about. I mean, clearly, you think maybe their deck's a little bit better than mine. Although, over time, looking at some of these mythics, you might say, you know, mine's certainly not that bad either, but I'll kind of try to just make do. I think because of some of his trample capability, it could be difficult, though. I mean, you're basically dead next turn if you can't deal with it, so I should be fine. As long as I can block a couple of these, I can block the 7/7 outright. I can block the 8/7 and I'll be almost dead, but gotta go all in now. Let's see what a platinum player's got, dude. We're gonna clean sweep a platinum player. What is this shit? Add 1 mana. It doesn't matter though how much mana you have though. Like, what are you gonna do? That doesn't matter. It's over like this turn because you can't do anything about the Invisible Stalker. Look at his moment to shine, dude, and he doesn't even want the credit. He's just the quiet type. 7/7. Am I dead though? I shouldn't be dead still. I shouldn't be dead. Or you know what's gonna happen though? Or wait, he's not even doing it. He should have attacked with everything and then I would have at least had to think about it. Wow, that was such a stupid play. Because like as long as we get that buff off, we'd be fine. Or that could be scary, actually. 2+1/+1 counters, like you're obviously dead. At least in the context of the 7/7 alone. So all I'd have to do is get 2 damage through. If you find a way to do this, I'd be very impressed. Or maybe I did fuck up somehow. Because I was relying on the Invisible Stalker, but he healed for maybe 2 more than I expected. Don't tell me I messed up. Fuck. Okay, that was maybe closer than what I expected. So we clean sweep. So I even underestimate my own green deck when I'm saying that white gets another chance. So now how do I resolve this? I guess I'll resolve it in the tie breaks, like the best of one, just to see who is the champion of the day. So red just did garbage and got swept out. So they both go perfect in the best of three. So where is this stupid clown deck that nobody likes? So this is just for the moral victory, I guess. It doesn't really have any special meaning. I guess if I played it for longer, then it would be what I would play for the rest of the time, maybe, or something like that. Or they'll both win here again, so. And it froze out. What happened? Well, this one doesn't count if it actually does that. Stream didn't crash, just the game itself is crashing. Creatures can attack, your opponent planeswalker, blah, blah, blah. That is one of the most bizarre parts. Like, most card games, you would look at that as being very strange. Right? Most card games are based around you have to get through their minions to attack them, if you can even attack them at all. Like Pokemon, you can't do that. You just auto-win if they have nothing in between you. But basically, is this a scenario where it ends up being a draw, or am I actually going to lose because of it? As much as I hate white, I still wouldn't, fuck. You could take some of the stuff out of context. Remember that time that guy he got canceled for saying that he hates white? I guess I'll relaunch. There's just something sort of minimalistic about this game's presentation that I really like, but maybe it doesn't lend itself to the popularity that it should have. The impression you get from this game is it takes itself very seriously for the most part, which you don't get that from a lot of other games, even including Hearthstone, that has sort of like the more the sense of humor to it, weird sort of whatever. Almost like it's trying too hard that way sometimes, but useless to. Okay, we've already recycling flavor text, dude. What are you, Dark Souls 2, where you clown me with the Smelter Demon that way? I spent like 15 streams fighting this dude between the two incarnations, which is not my proudest moment, but in a way, you know, whatever, we got it done. It's just a case where, you know, I go into those formats like I either do permadeath runs, which means if you die, then it's over, and then that's fine. That's the end of the series. I can accept my defeat. But then I do hard modes where it's like the assumption is I'm going to do it. I'm going to beat it. But it's just a case where, holy shit. The assumption is I'm going to beat it. It's just a case where you're basically... expecting that... I totally forgot what I was going to say because I'm so pissed off by that mulligan. You expect you're going to do it, so there's no failure state, so it doesn't end, right? So then you end up doing it forever until you get it, but that was never an issue before. Like with Dark Souls 1, one stat only character, first playthrough, whatever. It wasn't a big deal, but then, you know, you get into these scenarios like PvZ hard mode or Dark Souls 2 where there are some weird stuff that either it's objectively impossible to do or pretty close or just pretty annoying, like with Ava. Invisibility mechanics. You can double up with that. I'm at least impressed with the way this one did, though, despite the lack of cohesion to it, ultimately. We still haven't gotten to see Carnage Tyrant, though, a single time, unless maybe I did play it last time and I just forgot. Just kind of fun, make them feel powerless, but that was a pretty impressive showing too against the Platinum. Just, you know, for whatever our buffs did and that Invisible Stalker. In fact, I would have won that a little more decisively if I hadn't been so unsure of I always forget to use the Invisible Stalker every single turn, which people do that a lot. Right, that's one of the most common mistakes in Magic. They don't have a flying minion, and you do, but you both have like 10 things on the board, so you kind of forget about it. And so it's kind of like, now, isn't that sort of a play that Doesn't really matter, I guess. We can keep tapping one of these things, which is a good way to sort of counter flying or something you just can't deal with. But no, it's like, you know, you forget to attack with the flying one when they don't have anything flying on the board to block it. So like, what are you really waiting for? But I'm guilty of doing that too with the Invisible Stalker, at least. Not so much with flying stuff, because I don't typically have flying stuff. So this is fine. We could have that, but the problem is if they're always attacking, then there's no point. It's better more so for the opposite purpose. Like, what if I was to tap that? Would it mean that it would still be tapped on their turn? Because it's already tapped. Attack with these two, and then I don't have to worry about him so much. I do badly need land here. I guess I somehow thought you could stop them from ever... Like, if I was to tap it, let's say he doesn't do anything, I would tap it, and then it would not be able to block. But then would it untap still normally on his own turn? I should almost have tried it there. It would just extend the tap until my turn again. Whenever it deals damage, D20, create a treasure token. All I need is a bit more mana, but I'm not going to get it. Or now there's going to be at least a lot of juicy options to use. But again, that would only work for blocking purposes. I don't think it'll last out. Fuck. Nothing I can even do. Yeah, actually, that's a much worse effect than I thought. Somehow I thought it would bypass the way that tapping normally works and actually last until your next turn. Like how freezing works in Hearthstone. Like if you freeze something on your turn, it'll last your opponent's turn, but then it'll also last your next turn too. Because it's assuming that doesn't typically happen, that it normally happens on your opponent's turn. That actually seems quite weird to do. He wasn't in such a bad spot that he wanted to do that. In fact, he probably would have just won, so I'm kind of confused. But I'm getting kind of clowned now. Needed one more land. It doesn't even matter what color, because we already have the 2 white. Think about how long it would take in these games, even if I'm winning, to, what, it has haste too? That's always a pretty epic way to win. Yvonne Devastator. Flying Haste, Dragon, Hydra. All these kind of cards I should put on my little wish list where you can hard them. I don't think I've used that feature up till now, but basically that one's very cool for my Sarkhan thing. And then let's see if green's going to be the champion or if it'll even out. This one I won't even be able to do. Shivan Destructor and that other thing that I already forgot the name of it, Elder or something. That one platinum chick was rocking 3 of those, and not only do you have 3 in your deck, period, again, you happen to get them during the course of the one game that didn't even go on for that long. Yeah, how do you do that hard thing? Or is that just for the lands? Like, put it on your wish list so you remember that that's something you want to make. What is that? Oh, this is to make like a new deck. Shivan Devastator. Flying Haste enters the battlefield X +1/+1, so that is very cool. Anything with Flying Haste period is pretty impressive. Shivan Champion. Let's give green the final chance to see whether it's ultimately a perfect draw or that I runs away with the championship of the day, even though it doesn't seem to mean a whole lot. We make a little mini format out of it. And then that'll determine what we play as first next time, let's say. Because we were giving white sort of the dibs, and it did pretty well. I mean, it clean swept that one guy. Of course, green never lets me down. And this chick is maybe a lot better than I even give her credit for, but I, you know, even turned down making the Carnage Tyrant for her in the first place, so you can't deny it. Because basically I'm looking for hexproof stuff, just because I like the mechanics. So like we're making only hexproof minions for a while, and then it turns into a choice between 2 mythic ones. Would I rather get a 4/4 or a 7/6? They can't be countered, but because of the buff synergy with this, it's so good. And Invisible Stalker is the best target for buffs imaginable. That can get so out of hand. The only way they would have been able to deal with it would have been like to basically use an AoE of some kind, and you got to use it early on, otherwise it'll equal the number of creatures in your party at the beginning of combat on your turn if you have a full party. Now, what does that mean, a full party? Because you can't fill up the board, so it's some other mechanic that I forgot about. Or, I don't know. You could do Rebuke, but actually I can't do it. I probably should have done that instead of the Taxidermist because it would get the bonus effect right away. Could get out of hand a little bit. You could do the Carotid and you could do like one Rebuke, I guess. Number of creatures in your party. You may have it enter the battlefield as a copy of a creature you control, except as a shapeshifter rogue in addition to other types. Let's just do it because I don't want these to get too far out of hand. You can go ahead and trade in. He's not going to. Not a big fan of this situation, but we need how much more mana to summon this? We don't need any, actually. You go ahead and attack with this. Now he won't even be able to trade in for it. Just the idea of being able to buff something that they can't do, that they can't target, is the biggest slap in your face. In fact, it's the perfect example of that druid deck that I made in Hearthstone before I didn't even know this mechanic existed. But like, you would have this ability, let's just call it elusive. I guess I can do another one with green. That you would have elusive evasive. Basically, your opponent can't target your minions with spells or hero powers, or those specific minions, but you can't target them either, right? That's what's different about Hexproof. You can target these with no extra effort, but there would be certain AoE buffs that druids would have, like buff all the minions on the board, so that would still work on those elusive ones, whereas nothing else would. You would have to do something that doesn't specifically target it, and so now you have these untargetable things that you're also rubbing it in their face that you can target. That's the best of both worlds, but obviously here you don't have to even worry about that. That's just innately how it works. So it's actually a better way to go about the same mechanic. The only problem is, I guess, there's not that many of them. Mainly just trying to complete the daily quest. This guy's pretty perfect for being the trigger for the Carotid as well. And then that'll ramp up into, I heard you like summoning strong stuff. So you summon a strong thing that allows you to summon another strong thing easier, because you're just going to be totally jacked out with the mana generation that you're doing. Or why do I feel like that almost feels like an NPC thing where you can have two words in your name? I forgot that you can put spaces in there. When it enters, if it was kicked, create a token that's a copy. Mirror Mage, except it's not legendary and starting loyalty is 1. We could rebuke that, actually. I kind of want to, actually. Or I almost don't even have to. Make sure you take care of it. He's going to have some sort of stupid answer for it, I bet. Or maybe not.
I should do better.
You pull a card back. Sometimes the outline is just stands out a bit too much, though. You just immediately rebuke that, and then you might still be able to. Summon something. Now you're going all in, and then I probably shouldn't summon the rest of it. Rush him down. It basically degenerates into an aggro deck because that's the only way it's going to work. That's the whole free-to-play mindset, right? You're not trying to play aggro, but you have to play aggro because otherwise it just doesn't matter. Or whatever. That should basically be lethal, right? Or it'll be super close. So you could block the Carotid or something, but it doesn't matter. Or obviously you're tempted to block that. Or yeah, you knew it was going to die anyway, too, so it forces them to block preemptively, too, if they're going to. Do this for BM, I guess. Yeah, I do love some of these effects. Like, this is such a unique one that forces them to attack and stop hiding behind it. Or is that still not going to do the daily quest, though, because he didn't even summon 4 things? That's why I'm going out of my way to rebuke and stuff. Because it's not really up to you to be able to destroy them. Imagine it's still not enough. Now, how close are we to actually the 10k mark? 24 out of 25. I can do one more then, I guess. Or hang on. Or is that already gonna... Oh, shit. That's so troll. Now that this one will win, but without even being able to do that. This isn't quite enough land. What can we get rid of? I hate to do it, but that might be the best choice, actually. Not like a super high value card, but maybe that protection from black can come in handy later on. Or like in very specific scenarios. That's not, obviously, there's no special meaning to why we have some of these. It's just like whatever hexproof I have is just in here. And I think I have most of the hexproof stuff in the game. In fact, I should look through. What hexproof cards don't I have? Because there really weren't that many at all. Are you going to meet our match in some sort of same white buff trash? That's going to put you over the top as far as mana, no matter what. Whenever it enters, or you cast a party spell, choose a creature in your hand, gets +1/+1. Party card or spell is a cleric, rogue, warrior, wizard. Yeah, that's fine. 7 or more life. There's always one like this that I confuse it with. Where like, oh, if you have 7 more life than your opponent and it hits their face, then it basically you just auto win the game. But I feel like that's not something we've seen in a while, or maybe they somehow changed it or nerfed it. Now they're going to be in a case where they just have too much flying stuff, so it doesn't matter. That's where that turtle can be such a godsend, because it'll force them to attack still. Or you need something with reach. Like, it's impressive to be able to do that, don't get me wrong, but he's already just going to have lethal. Yeah, it's pointless. They have vigilance and stuff too. So did we even destroy one of those? So we would have to do another one, or I'm not allowed to do it then? I do sort of let whatever the round robin format thing dictate it. Wait, but he chooses just not to do it. Just give me rebuke. There's nothing I can do about the flying. Just trade something in, dude. And I guess they're sort of just trolling me. Let them have the satisfaction. I typically don't like to resign, but if they just waste time, it can be annoying. Sometimes even then you'll get some really cool interaction. See how low you can get somebody in the minus and stuff like that. Yeah, that should be the challenge of even having to do the daily quest is not a given. You have to do it within the format of what you're doing, which is surprising. We won like 2 best of 3s and we won other stuff, and we still weren't able to do either of those. But whatever, we're almost close enough to do the draft anyway.